Are you paying attention? Because the warning signs are all around us. And if you're not prepared, you could be left scrambling to find your favorite groceries. Empty shelves, skyrocketing prices, frenzied shoppers grabbing the last can or box. This isn't some distant doomsday scenario, it's happening now. Global food systems are buckling under the weight of relentless inflation, climate disasters, broken supply chains, and geopolitical chaos. What does this mean for you? It means the staples you've relied on for years, flour, sugar, butter, rice, even your morning orange juice, could vanish from store shelves in the blink of an eye. Here's the brutal truth. January might be the last time you see some of these pantry essentials at reasonable prices, or at all. Experts are sounding the alarm about potential food shortages, and the data backs it up. Global wheat stocks are at their lowest levels in a decade. Avocado prices have jumped over 50% in the past year, and fertilizer shortages mean smaller harvests for everything from coffee to potatoes. These aren't just inconveniences. They're warning flares signaling a crisis that could hit your local grocery store before you even realize it. So ask yourself, are you ready for what's coming? Because in the next few minutes, we're diving into 30 grocery items most likely to disappear after January. Each one is more essential and more at risk than the last. If you want to avoid empty pantries, higher grocery bills, and the stress of being unprepared, stick with us. Let's break down why these items are vanishing and what you need to do now to stay ahead of the curve. The clock is ticking, and it's time to take action. 30. Flour and baking supplies. Flour and baking supplies might feel like permanent fixtures in your pantry, but buckle up, because major disruptions truly threaten these must-haves. Droughts in wheat-producing regions from the U.S. plains to Eastern Europe have hammered harvests, driving up prices. Meanwhile, extreme weather events like floods wipe out acres of crops, leaving mills scrambling. With shipping containers in short supply and drivers at a premium, getting flour from farm to shelf becomes an uphill battle. Don't forget labor shortages. Many milling facilities operate below capacity, slowing production right when demand is skyrocketing. And as inflation pushes grocery bills higher, panic buying can clear shelves fast. If you're partial to homemade cookies or Sunday waffles, consider stocking up before the flour storm hits and beyond. Stash an extra bag of your go-to flour, plus sugar, yeast, and baking powder, so you can keep whipping up treats even if store shelves run dry. 29. Butter. Butter might be that unassuming fridge essential, but it's teetering on the brink of scarcity. Worldwide milk production has dipped, thanks to skyrocketing feed costs and unpredictable weather that slashes dairy herd sizes. In places like the U.S. Midwest and parts of Europe, ongoing labor shortages also mean farms can't keep up with milking schedules, pushing output down even further. This slump coincides with the peak season for comfort foods, think holiday baking and hearty recipes, that guzzle butter by the pound. Manufacturers are juggling transportation nightmares, from driver shortages to clogged ports, making delivery times slower than a snail race. Even once the butter arrives at processing plants, packaging materials like foil and plastic are harder to secure, piling on more delays. If you can't imagine your morning toast without a generous smear, or your cookies without that creamy richness, it's wise to stock up before price tags soar higher soon. 28. Rice and grain. Alternatives. If rice is a staple in your home, prepare for some tough news. Climate extremes, from floods in Southeast Asia to droughts in parts of Africa, are hammering rice production, leaving fields submerged or bone dry. On top of that, major exporters like India have flirted with restricting exports to stabilize domestic markets, sparking global concern. People trying to eat healthier, gluten-free, or simply switch things up have been snapping up alternatives like quinoa, millet, and buckwheat. Unfortunately, those ancient grains aren't immune to trouble. Quinoa production in the Andes has been hurt by erratic rainfall, while millet farms in Africa can't catch a break from scorching heat. Transportation bottlenecks add another layer of chaos, with shipping containers in short supply, forcing prices up across the board. If you rely on rice or lesser-known grains, stocking your pantry now could save a world of frustration and sticker shock after January comes and goes. 27. Peanut butter and nut butters. Smooth or crunchy, Peanut butter has long been a pantry icon, but get ready for empty shelves. The American Southeast, a peanut-growing powerhouse, has struggled with unpredictable storms and blistering heat, slashing yields. Almond butter fans aren't safe either. California's almond orchards are shriveling under drought conditions, while water restrictions leave farmers scrambling. Cashews, largely sourced from Africa and Southeast Asia, face shipping gridlocks that slow their journey to processing plants, leaving store shelves sparse. Adding to the tension, labor shortages hit every step, from farm workers to factory technicians who maintain specialized grinding equipment. Packaging woes, from plastic jar shortages to rising label costs, further drive up what you'll pay at the checkout. Demand has also soared, thanks to health-conscious eaters who can't get enough protein-packed spreads. If you love your PB&J or a spoonful of nutty goodness, now's the time to stock up before a crunch of another kind hits. 26. Maple syrup. Maple syrup lovers, brace yourselves. Climate hiccups and soaring demand could make that golden drizzle harder to find. Quebec, responsible for roughly 70% of the world's maple syrup, has seen unseasonably warm winters followed by abrupt cold snaps, messing with the ideal freeze-thaw cycle sap production depends on. When producers can't predict the weather, they tap fewer trees and yields nosedive. The famous maple syrup reserve in Canada has been tapped repeatedly to avert crises, but those emergency barrels aren't bottomless. Meanwhile, maple syrup's popularity has exploded as people gravitate toward natural sweeteners in health foods, specialty coffee drinks, and artisanal baked goods. Even smaller producers in Vermont and New York are feeling the squeeze, facing supply chain snarls and limited labor for collecting and boiling sap. If your weekend ritual involves a stack of pancakes drenched in pure maple bliss, consider grabbing extra bottles before they vanish. 25. Canned tomatoes and tomato products. Canned tomatoes, tomato paste, and sauces seem ever present on store shelves, but the tomato pipeline is hitting major snags. Fierce droughts in California, the tomato capital of the U.S., and extreme heat waves in southern Europe have cut yields drastically. Tomato plants are finicky. Too much sun, too little water, or unexpected storms can wipe out entire fields. Meanwhile, the cost of fertilizer has shot skyward, leaving farmers squeezed between lower harvests and higher expenses. Shipping disruptions compound the issue. Aluminum for cans is pricier, and container shortages slow the trek from processing plants to retailers. Labor shortages also hit canneries, forcing them to run below capacity during peak harvest times when tomatoes must be processed immediately for optimal quality. With everyone craving tomato-based soups, pizzas, and pasta sauces, demand continues to outstrip supply. If your pantry depends on that bright red goodness, stock up before can-laden shelves start to thin. 24. Frozen vegetables. Frozen vegetables are the ultimate convenience food, but they're under threat from farm to freezer aisle. Extreme weather hits crops before they can even make it to processing plants. A single flood or drought can decimate fields of broccoli, peas, or corn. Once harvested, veggies must be flash-frozen fast to lock in flavor, requiring state-of-the-art machinery that's increasingly prone to breakdowns. Supply chain bottlenecks, like a shortage of cold storage facilities, turn distribution into a logistical maze, where any delay can spoil an entire shipment. Labor issues strike here too, as processing plants struggle to stay fully staffed, leading to lower outputs of those handy mixed veggie bags. Plus, consumer habits are shifting. Single-variety frozen veggies like spinach or cauliflower florets are trending, causing producers to reshuffle operations. If you rely on a freezer stash for quick weeknight meals, grab those bags now, because they might vanish sooner than you think. 23. Orange juice. Orange juice might be the quintessential breakfast drink, but citrus groves are facing a perfect storm. Florida farmers are grappling with citrus greening disease, spread by an insect that leaves fruit small and sour, ultimately killing trees. The Sunshine State has recorded some of its smallest orange harvests in decades, driving up OJ prices by double digits. Meanwhile, Brazil, the globe's biggest exporter of orange juice, faces similar crop diseases and labor shortages, compounding the squeeze. With orchard owners switching to more profitable or less risky crops like soybeans, the supply of oranges is in freefall. Even when farmers manage a decent harvest, transportation jams and rising fuel costs make moving fresh oranges to processing plants a pricey endeavor. Shoppers have noticed skyrocketing prices and fewer choices in the juice aisle. If your morning routine hinges on that sunny glass of vitamin C, stock your fridge now before OJ becomes liquid gold. 22. Eggs. If you think your Sunday morning omelet is untouchable, think again. Eggs are on thin ice. Avian influenza outbreaks have forced massive cullings in poultry flocks worldwide, drastically cutting egg production and pushing prices through the roof. Farmers who manage to keep their flocks healthy still contend with soaring feed costs, made worse by droughts that reduce corn and soybean yields, the main feed components. Labor issues add insult to injury, as fewer workers mean slower egg collection and sorting. Then there's transportation mayhem. Shortages of truck drivers and higher fuel costs drive up the expense of getting eggs from farms to supermarkets. Consumer demand for eggs remains high, especially with home baking on the rise and diets like keto emphasizing protein intake. Combine all these factors, and you have a recipe for bare shelves in the dairy aisle. If you rely on eggs, stock your fridge before the scramble begins. 21. Chicken. Chicken, once the most affordable and accessible protein, is marching down a rocky road that could lead to empty coolers. Avian flu has taken a toll on poultry farms globally, decimating flocks and leaving producers scrambling to contain outbreaks. The result? Fewer birds make it to processing plants, which already struggle with labor shortages and outdated equipment. Meanwhile, feed costs have skyrocketed alongside grain and soybean prices, forcing many small-scale poultry farmers to reduce their operations or shut down altogether. Add rising transportation expenses, from lack of truck drivers to surging fuel prices, and shipping birds or packaged meat becomes a logistical maze. Consumers aren't helping. As red meat prices climb, more people turn to chicken, intensifying the pressure on supply chains. If your weekly meal plan relies on chicken's versatility, from stir-fries to roasted drumsticks, it's wise to stock up before your local store runs out of cluck. 20. Sugar. Sugar might be the unsung hero in your pantry, sweetening up everything from morning coffee to homemade cakes, but its future is looking sour. Extreme weather swings are hammering major sugar-producing regions, like Brazil, Thailand, and India. Floods in some areas and droughts in others have crippled sugarcane harvests, while hurricanes threaten U.S. cane and beet farms along the Gulf Coast. Even when crops survive, labor shortages delay harvests, leaving canes to degrade in the fields and reducing yield quality. Processing plants also face rising energy costs, making refining sugar even pricier. Meanwhile, global shipping woes mean raw sugar can't move as smoothly across oceans, driving up prices. Demand hasn't dipped either. From beverages to baked goods, sugar remains an ingredient no one wants to cut back on. If you're fond of sweet treats, consider snagging an extra bag or two before shelves turn bare and prices spike. 19. Salt. Salt. That humble seasoning you barely notice until it's missing is edging towards scarcity in some regions. Harsh winters deplete road salt reserves, and shifting climate patterns cause unpredictable demand swings for de-icing. Meanwhile, food-grade salt producers face hurdles of their own. Aging infrastructure in salt mines and evaporation facilities leads to higher extraction costs. Transporting salt isn't as simple as it sounds either. Specialized freight conditions are often required to prevent moisture damage, and when shipping containers and rail cars are tied up with more profitable cargo, salt gets bumped down the priority list. Global supply chain disruptions only make it tougher to keep salt moving from mines to tables. Adding to the pinch, certain niche salts like Himalayan pink or sea salt see skyrocketing demand from health-conscious consumers, outpacing the pace of production. If you think you can't cook without a pinch of salt, stock up promptly. 18. Coffee. Coffee lovers, brace yourselves. Your morning cup of joe could vanish or skyrocket in price. Brazil, the world's top coffee producer, has been slammed by a sequence of droughts followed by frost, wreaking havoc on coffee plantations. In Colombia, heavy rains cause landslides that destroy coffee trees, while political instability disrupts the transport of beans. Add in the fact that coffee bushes take years to mature, so any lost harvest can't bounce back overnight. Demand, however, keeps climbing, particularly for premium and specialty beans, thanks to trendy coffee shops and at-home baristas. Shipping chaos adds insult to injury. Container shortages mean exporters must pay more to get their beans aboard vessels, hiking costs all the way down to your local cafe. Labor issues also emerge, as younger generations drift away from grueling farm work. If you rely on that aromatic pick-me-up, consider stocking up before your wallet takes a caffeinated hit. 17. Chocolate. Chocolate lovers might want to grab a bigger stash now, because cocoa supplies are teetering under pressure. In top-producing countries like Ivory Coast and Ghana, cocoa trees face aging and diseases like cacao swollen shoot virus, which drastically cut yields. Extreme weather, from torrential rains to severe drought, further strains fragile farms. Global demand for chocolate is climbing, fueled not just by everyday candy bars, but also by gourmet brands and health-conscious consumers interested in dark chocolate's antioxidants. Meanwhile, shipping woes and trade policies have pushed freight costs through the roof, making it more expensive to move cocoa beans across continents. Even the intricate fermentation process can be disrupted by labor shortages, meaning fewer high-quality beans are available. The result is a potential spike in chocolate prices, or worse, sparse stocks at your favorite retailer. If a chocolate fix is non-negotiable, secure your sweet treats before they melt away. 16. Cooking oils. Cooking oils, like canola, sunflower, olive, and soybean, are becoming liquid gold, and not in a good way. A devastating drought in Canada's prairies slashed canola production, while extreme heat in the Mediterranean hammered olive groves, leading to the smallest harvest in years for olive oil. Sunflower oil supplies are reeling from geopolitical conflicts in Eastern Europe, where vast fields have been destroyed or left unharvested. Add in labor shortages at pressing facilities, and you've got a recipe for tighter supply. Demand is through the roof, too, as people cook more at home and restaurants open back up, doubling the need for oils. Shipping constraints pile on higher costs at every stage: bottles, caps, labels, and push retail prices upward. Panic buying doesn't help, as consumers stockpile large jugs of their favorite brand, clearing shelves. If you're an avid home cook or deep-frying enthusiast, don't wait to grab extra bottles. 15. Cereals. Breakfast cereals might be the go-to for busy mornings, but they're not as safe as they look. Corn, wheat, and oats, key ingredients in many cereal boxes, are facing erratic weather that hammers harvests. Droughts in the American Midwest and Canadian prairies reduce corn and oat yields, while flooding in Europe disrupts wheat supplies, setting off a domino effect. Processing plants are also grappling with higher energy costs, making it more expensive to turn raw grains into those crispy flakes or crunchy clusters. Cardboard, plastic liners, and printing inks are pricier too, which drives up packaging costs. Then come the transport bottlenecks, with rail cars and trucking slots in short supply, leaving cereals stuck in warehouses. Throw in labor shortages, and some lines run on skeleton crews, limiting production. If you rely on that quick bowl in the morning, consider stocking up on your favorite cereal before boxes disappear or prices spike. 14. Cheese. Cheese fans, prepare for a possible meltdown. Milk shortages tie directly into cheese production, and as dairy herds shrink from high feed costs and extreme weather, cheese supplies tighten. European cheese powerhouses like France and Italy have also reported labor crunches in artisanal factories, slowing production of specialty cheeses. Even in the U.S., cheddar and mozzarella producers struggle with shipping delays for rennet, cultures, and packaging materials. Aging cheese requires meticulously controlled storage conditions, which get costlier when energy prices climb. Meanwhile, consumer demand for everything from cheese boards to extra cheese pizza is on the rise, straining already frayed supply lines. Importers face tariffs and shipping container scarcities, complicating international cheese trade. The outcome? Rising prices for your favorite wedges and blocks, plus fewer varieties on display at your local grocery. If your meals revolve around melty, gooey goodness, consider stocking up before the big cheese crunch hits. 13. Baby formula. Baby formula shortages can spark real panic among parents, And unfortunately, the challenges persist. Production is concentrated in just a handful of factories, so when one facility faces a recall or shutdown, it sends shockwaves through the entire market. At the same time, critical ingredients, like whey protein and specialized vitamins, have become harder to source thanks to global supply chain snags. Transportation woes, especially long shipping times for imported components, compound the crisis. Add ongoing labor shortages, and you have factories running below capacity just when demand is surging. Many parents understandably try to stockpile, which further depletes shelves in local stores. Complicating matters, strict regulations on formula composition can slow the approval of new suppliers, limiting how quickly producers can ramp up production. If you've got a little one who relies on formula, plan ahead, because those canisters might vanish faster than you ever thought possible. 12. Soda and carbonated beverages. Soda might not be the first thing you think would vanish, but carbonated beverages face a fizzled-out future. For starters, the supply of aluminum cans is strained by higher demand from craft beer and sparkling water markets, driving up costs for every beverage producer. Carbon dioxide shortages, yes, the gas that puts the pop in soda, also hinder production. CO2 is a byproduct of industrial processes that have slowed due to economic shifts, leaving beverage companies scrambling to secure enough gas. Shipping disruptions further complicate the situation, as factories struggle to get sweeteners and flavorings delivered on time. Then there's the rising cost of sugar, which hits soda producers right in the profit margin. Some are cutting back on production lines, focusing on best sellers while niche flavors disappear. If your fridge door always has a few chilled cans ready, consider stocking up before you're left with nothing but flat options. 11. Dried beans and lentils. Hardy, shelf-stable, and budget-friendly, dried beans and lentils are a lifeline for many households. But that status is in jeopardy. Farmers from North America to India grapple with unpredictable weather. Droughts dry up water supplies needed for irrigation, while floods can destroy entire fields. Political tensions also lead certain countries to impose export restrictions, limiting how much pulses can leave their borders. Add to that a surge in plant-based eating, and demand for protein-rich legumes skyrockets. Processing plants, crucial for cleaning and packaging, face labor shortages and machinery maintenance woes, forcing them to operate at reduced speeds. Shipping disruptions make ocean freight painfully expensive, so prices climb as beans and lentils slowly reach store shelves. Panic buying flares when rumors of shortages spread, leading to bare aisles in some regions. If you rely on beans or lentils to stretch your meals, stock up now before that pot of chili becomes a luxury. 10. Fish and seafood. From salmon fillets to shrimp cocktails, seafood favorites are sailing into choppy waters. Climate change is altering ocean temperatures, shifting fish migration patterns, and affecting breeding cycles. Fishermen must travel farther or switch targets altogether, which drives up operating costs, from fuel to boat maintenance. Meanwhile, aquaculture faces its own troubles. Fish farms often rely on specialized feed containing soy or fish meal, both of which are pricier and harder to source. Add geopolitical friction that restricts fishing in certain zones, and you have global tension over who gets to cast nets where. Processing plants dealing with labor shortages and outdated equipment fall behind on filleting, freezing, and canning tasks. Even when fish is ready for shipping, tight container space and high freight fees push up retail costs. If your diet revolves around a healthy serving of omega-3s, consider stocking the freezer now, because supply could dry up soon. 9. Potatoes. Potatoes might seem like an indestructible staple. After all, they can grow almost anywhere, but that doesn't make them immune to chaos. Unpredictable weather has hammered major potato-growing areas, from heat waves in Idaho to flooding in parts of Europe. These extremes can lead to smaller spuds or entire crop failures. Potato processors, those factories turning potatoes into fries, chips, and frozen wedges, face a shortage of both raw materials and packaging. Rising energy costs hit especially hard for facilities that rely on quick processing and freezing. Transportation logjams add to the headache. Potatoes are bulky, and shipping them requires truck space that's currently at a premium. On top of that, Fast food demand for fries is sky high, and snack brands are competing for the same limited supply. If you don't want to face a world without mashed potatoes or crispy chips, stock your pantry and freezer before spuds go scarce. 8. Fresh produce. Fresh greens like lettuce, spinach, and kale seem abundant, yet they're shockingly susceptible to rapid shortages. Hydroponic farms face rising energy bills to maintain ideal temperatures, while traditional fields are at the mercy of erratic rains and scorching heat waves. Outbreaks of plant diseases can decimate entire acres overnight, and frequent recalls for contamination, like E. coli in lettuce, create waves of panic buying. Disrupted trucking networks make it tough to move delicate greens quickly enough to keep them fresh, and any delay can turn crisp leaves into wilted waste. The drive for year-round availability means produce often travels hundreds or even thousands of miles, compounding shipping headaches. Additionally, farm labor shortages mean fewer hands to plant, harvest, and pack. Grocery stores often reduce variety or hike prices to manage short supply. If salads and smoothies are your daily go-to, consider stocking up or exploring backyard gardening options now. 7. Spices and seasonings. That pinch of paprika or dash of cumin might be harder to find soon. Many popular spices come from far-flung corners of the globe: vanilla from Madagascar, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, and pepper from Vietnam. Political instability, weather extremes, and port congestion can disrupt harvests and shipments in a flash. The vulnerability of these supply chains shows up when a single cyclone wipes out entire vanilla fields, sending prices through the roof. Ocean freight costs have also soared, meaning importers pass higher costs onto consumers. To complicate matters, some regions impose export quotas to keep local markets stable, limiting how much spice leaves the country. Meanwhile, global demand spikes as more home cooks experiment with diverse recipes. Packaging materials for small spice jars have also seen price hikes. If you want your kitchen bursting with flavor, grabbing a few extra jars of essential seasonings now might be your best bet. 6. Oatmeal. Oatmeal might be the poster child for health and convenience, but its supply is looking shakier than ever. Canada, the world's largest oat exporter, has experienced back-to-back droughts and unexpectedly hot summers, crushing yields and sending prices skyward. The U.S. also faces shrinking farmland for oats, as farmers pivot to more profitable crops like corn and soy. Processing plants require specialized equipment to hull and steam oats, and those machines often break down without quick repair parts, delays that hamper the entire supply chain. Meanwhile, demand keeps climbing. From overnight oats to oat milk, everyone seems to want a piece of this high-fiber superstar. Add shipping constraints, with fewer rail cars dedicated to agricultural freight, and you get yet another bottleneck. If oatmeal is your go-to breakfast or a key ingredient in your baking routine, consider stocking up now before the only thing left in the cereal aisle is disappointment. 5. Bottled water. Bottled water shortages might sound unthinkable, but the industry's delicate web is starting to fray. Severe droughts affect springs and aquifers, while tighter environmental regulations limit how much water bottling companies can draw. Plastic shortages also rear their head. Resin, caps, and labels are all pricier and harder to source. Shipping issues complicate matters further. Bottled water is heavy, meaning higher fuel costs and fewer bottles transported per trip. Panic buying sprees, often triggered by natural disasters or even rumors, clear aisles faster than companies can restock. Labor shortages in bottling plants add a final twist, as fewer workers means slowed production lines. The result? Local or regional shortages that ripple across multiple brands, sometimes leaving entire store sections bare. If you rely on bottled water for daily hydration, or you stockpile it for emergencies, think about buying a few extra cases before it becomes a tapped-out commodity. 4. Canned soups. Canned soups, comfort in a can, could be harder to find just when you crave them most. Key ingredients like chicken, tomatoes, and vegetables are already facing production woes. Add to that the cost and scarcity of aluminum, and you have a recipe for fewer cans rolling off assembly lines. Factories also need a stable workforce to mix, cook, and package soups efficiently, but labor shortages remain a thorn in the industry's side. Even specialized machinery used for sealing cans and sterilizing contents can go offline if parts aren't readily available. Transportation logjams then stretch delivery times, risking spoilage or simply leaving shelves empty for weeks. Cold winters and global unrest typically boost demand as consumers look for long-lasting pantry items, intensifying strain on supply. If chicken noodle, tomato bisque, or hearty vegetable soup is your go-to lazy night meal, consider grabbing extra cans now before the soup aisle dries up. 3. Canned tuna. Canned tuna has long been a lunchbox staple and survival kit hero, but its future is adrift. Overfishing in key tuna regions like the Pacific puts pressure on fish stocks, and stricter regulations limit hauls to preserve dwindling populations. Meanwhile, fishing fleets face ballooning fuel costs and labor shortages, further constraining catches. Climate shifts push schools of tuna into different waters, meaning longer voyages and higher operational expenses. Once the fish finally arrives at canneries, outdated equipment and staff shortages slow the cleaning and packing process. Don't forget about tin plate scarcity and shipping dilemmas. Limited containers and high freight rates force companies to scale back production runs. Demand remains steady, if not growing, because consumers prize tuna's protein and convenience. But if these compounding factors continue, those tidy little cans could become a rarity. If tuna salad or quick casseroles are routine in your home, consider stocking up now. 2. Fresh berries. If you love fresh berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, you might need to brace for higher prices and sparser shelves. Berry fields are finicky and weather-sensitive. Too much rain can cause fruit rot, while excessive heat can scorch delicate plants, leading to drastically reduced yields. Labor-intensive picking processes mean farms rely heavily on seasonal workers, but tightening immigration policies and pandemic repercussions have created labor shortages in many regions. Add to that the cost of refrigerated trucking, which has soared as fuel prices climb and driver availability shrinks. Berries also have a painfully short shelf life, so any shipping delay can lead to spoilage. Even if they make it to stores, a smaller overall harvest drives up prices. Demand has never been higher, spurred by health trends touting antioxidants and vitamins. If you can't live without your morning berry smoothie or dessert topping, stock up now or look into growing your own. 1. Milk. Milk, the quintessential household staple, may be in for a turbulent ride. Dairy farms worldwide are grappling with skyrocketing feed and fertilizer costs, which force some farmers to downsize herds or exit the industry altogether. Climate woes compound the problem. Heat stress can reduce milk production in cows, while unpredictable weather events damage pastures. Labor shortages limit how many hands are available to manage daily milking, and advanced milking robots remain prohibitively expensive for smaller farms. Even larger operations feel the pinch when farm equipment breaks down and supply chain snarls delay repairs. Once the milk is collected, it contends with transportation logjams. Milk tankers and truck drivers are in short supply, making timely deliveries a challenge. Add processing plant bottlenecks, where milk is pasteurized and packaged, and you've got a recipe for rising prices or looming shortages. If a tall glass of milk or that morning cereal is non-negotiable, prepare accordingly.